Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we're going to continue our Missing Character series, where we'll discuss excerpts of lore, their rules on the tabletop, and how they could be translated into Total War Warhammer. Today we'll be talking about one specific unit. It's not one character, but three. These are the Glottkin, so without further ado, let's begin. To properly introduce these characters to people who may not be aware of them, we'll read over their entry into the Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition supplement, known as the End Times The Glottkin. The Glottkin, befouled brothers of Nurgle. The story of the Glottkin began in the Empire, on the coast of the Sea of Claws. The father of the triplets was Olos Glott, a humble Nordland farmer, and their mother was Ephra Greenblood, a magic user schooled in the lore of life. Having witnessed a bloody Norscan invasion, Olos and Ephra stowed away with the armies that sailed across the Sea of Claws in search of retribution. However, where their comrades brought bloody vengeance to their Norscan foes, they instead brought enlightenment. By teaching the crafts of the farmer and the healer to the savages of Norsca, they hoped not to prolong the cycle of violence, but to break it. After deserting from the Empire armies under the cover of darkness, the two emissaries slowly carved out a new life. Olos raised a humble house for his wife and tilled the stubborn ground around it. Ephra acted as a wise woman who influenced many of the Fjord clans. Over the course of the winter, Ephra's belly swelled to prodigious size. That year, her womb nourished not one child, but three. A jealous Norscan hag cut Ephra's finger with a rusted knife, and the shallow wound became badly infected. Unable to heal herself from the gangrenous curse that flowed in her blood, the she-wizard cried out in the night, begging the gods to save her children from the lethal infection. Father Nurgle was listening and sent a demon fly to alight on the pregnant Ephra's gravid belly. Instantly, the infection's deadly grip lessened, and less than a week later, Olos delivered 3 strong triplets near the rugged cliff of Fjordling tribe. Each bore a 3-lobed birthmark, the sigil of the Lord of Decay, but their delighted father was unaware of its significance. He named his children Otto, Ephrak, and Gurek, and counted himself amongst the luckiest men alive. The triplets that became known as the Glottkin grew tall and strong, and over time each showed great promise. Ephrak in particular was a quick study, drinking in the occult lore his mother had mastered. Meanwhile, Otto and Gurek wrestled each other, clambered across the treacherous cliffs of the fjords, and even sparred with the local youths of nearby Fjordling tribe. For a time, all seemed well, and the Glotts brought the arts of the civilized realms to their adopted people. Otto helped his father harvest his crops, with a great scythe of his own making. Ephrak aided his mother in rituals of fecundity that coaxed verdant life from the Norscan ice fields. Only Gurek proved wayward, more interested in brawling and chasing women than helping his family in more wholesome pursuits. Though the Glottkin's parents worked hard to promote peace, they could not dissuade the Norscans from the seaborne raids that were so deeply ingrained within their culture. In the autumn of 2506 of the Imperial calendar, the forces of Nordland came in search of retribution once more. Over 1,000 state troops made landfall to bring war to the Fjord tribes that had taken the Glotts into their culture. This time, the triplets were at the force of the fight. Otto hacked away with the same scythe he used to reap his father's harvest. Ephrak used his darkest growth magics to turn his foes into obese boulders of flesh. And the brawler Gurek flattened soldiers and champions alike with his fists. Still, it was not enough, for the black powder weapons of the Nordlanders could kill at 50 paces, and the great cannons winched up to the cliff tops from the gun decks of their galleons took a gruesome toll. The Glottkin fought hard as their people were cut down around them, blood dripping over the lips of the cliffs into the crashing waves below. The triplets soon became surrounded by the bloody confusion of melee. When they saw their mother and father cut down by Nordland halberdiers, all 3 of the Glottkin cried out as one for vengeance. The seeds of mayhem that had been planted within their souls, watered by the blood of battle, finally began to bear fruit. Otto cut men down like autumn corn as his scythe swung left and right. Handgunner bullets thudded into his chest and even his face, but they did not break the skin. Efrak's magic became even more destructive, reducing men to pools of black slime and causing maggots of dark energy to eat his foes from the inside out. Gurek was filled with a demonic strength, the warrior punching clean through torsos and guts before picking up a great cannon by its muzzle and swinging it like a giant club to sweep his foes over the cliff. Since that fateful battle, Nurgle bestowed gifts upon the triplets with each passing year, spoiling them much in the manner of a generous grandfather treating his grandchildren. Little by little, the Glotts became very different men. Gurek grew larger and larger as his ravenous appetite for life turned into desperate gluttony. Eventually, man became monster as Gurek gained terrible strength, but lost the ability to reason. Known for growling a corrupted version of his own name, Gurk was refashioned by his adoptive grandfather into an obese spawn thing so large his brothers took to riding him to war. Great horns sprouted from his shoulders, popping boils covered his back, and his arms mutated horrendously, one into a lamprey maw, the other into a muscular tentacle, the better to scoop up victims to sate his terrible hunger. Gurk could slay giants and ice drakes alike, devouring their corpses and later defecating heaving mounds from which strange new forms of life emerged into the light. Embittered by the loss of his mother and father, Efrak became dark of heart. His spells turned even fouler, and the types of life they propagated were vile and unwholesome. The sorcerer burnt his parents' bodies on a brazier that he has borne ever since, the stinking scent of burnt offal drawing clouds of flies wherever he roams. The remains of his parents still smolder there to this day, a cremated reminder of the vengeance their sorcerer's son has yet to wreak. Of all the triplets, Otto has embraced his new destiny with the most fervor. He became a true devotee of Nurgle, intending to sow unbridled life across the world in every manner and every form, no matter how stomach-churning. His scabrous body bloated and became tough as bark, though the wounds he suffered on his steady rise to glory did not heal completely. The contagions that drizzled from his open guts grew so virulent they were soon weapons in their own right. Otto took to coating the blade of his scythe with his own poisonous juices whenever he went into battle, cementing his reputation as a harbinger of plague. Amongst all the brothers, it is Otto who is the most driven. His taste for carnage has seen the roaming Glottkin triumph against warbands that worship Stanesh, Tzeentch, and even Mighty Khorne. Yet despite their growing favor in the eyes of their patron, it was only when Archaon approached them to lead his vanguard that the triplets began their deadly journey in earnest. A sad introduction to free characters, isn't it? But you'll notice a theme here through our missing character series, that a lot of characters that do fall to chaos, more commonly with those that fall to Papa Nurgle's embrace, generally don't seek the powers of chaos, but rather it happens to them. In all honesty, should the Nordlanders have never attacked, it was most likely that these warriors would have grown and lived happy lives. But this is Warhammer, and generally happy lives don't really exist. But let's not divert and see how they were on the tabletop. The Glottkin were 3 characters, but they were seen as one character. All 3 would be fielded together. You could not separate the 3 brothers in any way, shape or form, which is kinda wholesome if you think about it in a weird chaosy way. But that being said, their stats were pretty high. Decent movement, high-ish weapon skill, high strength, toughness, and incredibly high wound values. It's actually mentioned in this book, which goes as follows. Normally a model cannot have more than 10 wounds, but the Glottkin are so powerful that they are an exception to this rule, having a starting wounds characteristic of 12. Now this might not mean much to you non-tabletop players, but that is incredibly high. So in this case, the Glottkin should have the highest amount of possible HP in Total War Warhammer should they ever get implemented. Now we're going to go over the special rules on the tabletop, but be warned, the Glottkin were quite powerful, and that's why the cost to field them was a whopping 810 points. Well, if you had stuff like cannons, you could take them out from afar, but that's an issue that Warhammer Fantasy had, that you could just take out big monsters. It was something like, yeah, it was a problem. We'll just move ahead. For generic special rules, they have the Mark of Nurgle, Poison Attack, Regeneration, and Terror. Easy enough to translate into Total War Warhammer. Then we have Nurgle's Rot. At the start of every magic phase, each enemy model in base contact with the Glottkin suffer a single strength 1 hit with no armor saves allowed. I see this being implemented as a type of ability, an area of effect aura which damages enemies nearby. Maybe a 10 to 20 second aura, nothing too big but enough to be noticeable. Next we have Pestilent Torrent. The Glottkin have a strength 3 breath weapon which can only be used in close combat. No armor saves are allowed against wounds caused by this breath weapon. Okay, maybe this could be done as a breath weapon that comes out of the Glottkin, but instead of doing damage, it could be a debuff that reduces armor values of any enemies in front of it. That might be a tad overpowered, but then again, too much damage is a bit much, you know what I mean? And next we have the Lords of Nurgle, the Glottkin and all other friendly models within 12 inches that either have the Mark of Nurgle or Demon of Nurgle special rule, reroll failed charges. This could be done as a faction buff, where units in the Glottkin's own personal army would have a bonus to charge. It's nothing too great, but then again, charge bonus is always welcome. And lastly, we have the rules dedicated to each of the brothers. Ephrac Glott. Ephrac casts spells from his perch high on his brother's shoulders. The Glottkin are treated as if they were a level 4 wizard that can use spells from the lore of Nurgle. Simple enough, the Glottkin are not only a powerhouse in melee combat and incredibly tanky, but they're also counted as a wizard too. Yeah, this is a tad overpowered, but then again, this model was introduced during the End Times, and the End Times was a whole fiasco in its own right. Gurk Glott. Gurk can use the massive tentacle that has replaced one of his arms to crush the life from even the mightiest foe. Before rolling to hit, nominate one of the Glottkin's attacks as the Lashing Tentacle. This attack has strength 10 and the multiple wounds special rule for D6. I think this would be a generic attack animation. It's a cleave in its own right. There's no need to make it too special about it. Plus, if the Glottkin are going to be as immensely massive as they're represented in lore and in their tabletop mini, then, well, they don't really need to have a special cleave, do they? And lastly, we have Otto Glott. Otto can hurl his scythe to cut down his enemies, even when he is standing on Gurk's mighty shoulders. This could be either a short-range missile attack, just to hurl the scythe, or maybe it could be just a buff to attack speed. That may make more sense than seeing the scythe being thrown around like a boomerang. The rules themselves could be easily translated. The Glottkin will be immensely overpowered, but as stated before, anything which is an End Times model is pretty much overpowered anyway, and it would be a massive shame not to get the Glottkin added into the Total War series if Game 3 is going to be utter chaos like they say. In terms of what faction they would be a part of, despite the fact that they are Norscan, it's more than likely that they would join the Warriors of Chaos as a champion of Nurgle. This was a time that we saw a faction known as the Legions of Chaos and the Grand Legions of the Everchosen, which freely mixed units such as the Warriors of Chaos and the Demons of Chaos, and the Beastmen too, which funnily enough in the End Times were actually good, because their ambush rule actually worked. Maybe they could form part of a sub-faction where Warriors of Chaos and Demons of Nurgle could freely mix. But if not, I'd see them placed in the generic Warriors of Chaos faction. This is one of my favorite ever models in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, and I would love to see this being implemented into the Total War Warhammer series. But what do you guys think about the Glottkin? What do you think would be his special rules and faction mechanics? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion, shall we? But with that, my friends, we come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various different social media links such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord, where you can get in contact with a great book team. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games, where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Using our special link and also our special code, both of which can be found in our description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A special thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Pence and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Hewell and VSVasan for subscribing to us at our Fane level. Honestly, I can't thank you guys enough for the support. It really means a lot to me, especially since all the money earned from Patreon goes directly back onto the channel. New webcam, equipment, microphones, and so on. And a big thank you to all of you liking, sharing, commenting on these videos. Honestly, I'm really enjoying creating this content and chatting to all of you guys about speculation, new content, and so on. It's absolutely awesome. It's been nice to make a few friends along the way. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and I shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.